how do you even go about? Because RRR is like a gateway drug. I
Yeah.
tried to figure out ways to kind of whittle RRR down to a selling point. What is the way you do that for like a normie, someone who doesn't really maybe they don't like movies, but that they like Braveheart. So how do you whittle it down for someone like that to sell them on giving it a shot?
That's actually a good comparison because, like, obviously that's Rajamouli's favorite director is Mel Gibson, and he loves Braveheart. So that's actually a place to start with that conversation. But the best thing you can do is just show them a little bit of it, show them a couple of the scenes that really stick out to you, and there's dozens to choose from, and
Sure.
and they're going to ask, how did they do that? And then, well, there's at least a dozen more scenes like that. So let's watch the movie. And
yeah, good point.
And there's even some cool, like, there's a motion poster, which it's not really a trailer. It's animated for the most part, and with music underneath it. But it looks really cool. They have some different, and that's on YouTube. They have some very different advertising campaigns they do there that do work. And so I would say it's like the best imaginable buddy movie, really, from the guy who loves Braveheart and Mel Gibson. And he's telling a complex story over time that involved real people who actually did exist, not at the same time, but they existed together. And what would happen if it's a what if scenario if those two had met at the right time?
And they were like superheroes.
And the superheroes. That's the thing to keep in mind. Like, it's people get uptight about some of the supernatural aspects of some of these stories, and Bahubali, same thing. But to me, I never felt that. Because there's something about the way it's portrayed that keeps it grounded. And that they have these sort of abilities, but some of it is down to like determination, where if you look Rom at the beginning of RRR, when he's going to make that arrest of the one guy who broke the picture, and he fights through that mob of people. Yeah, of course he vaulted an 18-foot fence or whatever, but then he took a beating. But he stuck to his principles and his promise where he's going to bring this guy in, and he did. And it was just sheer willpower that he did that.
Yeah, that's awesome. Rosie popped in to say hello. Hey, Rosie.
Good morning, Rosie Gamgee.
Thanks. Yeah, it's awesome to have you here with us. The next Rajamouli film is an adventure film. Incredibly excited for the next one. Yeah. Oh, well, bro, you can sign us up. You can sign us up. He's got films over here. He's got fans over here now. Let's see.
Yeah.
Mojo, a YouTube channel of 24 million subs, also made top 10 moment. Okay, cool.
Watch Mojo, cool.
Yeah, very, very cool. So,
and so I had other recommendations from some of the commenters, and they were excellent ones. And one of the ones that I was told to watch was Sardar Udham, to watch that soon, and to not just watch the epic, Telugu based action movies, and look at something else. And so I watched that, which is a biopic, and it is like it's incredible. I can't believe they didn't, for political reasons, they didn't send that to the Academy Awards as the representative, which they probably should have, because the actor was great, and it was so well done and deeply disturbing to try to watch some of it. But it definitely deserved a bigger look. But the concern was it was too much anti-British sentiment in the film. But to me that wasn't that was,
it was historical.
Yeah. Sure.
Yeah, I watched it and reviewed it as well. And
good, you saw it. Awesome.
Oh yeah. I remember your message was, I should have warned you. I'm like, no, I'm okay.
That's right. I mean,
I can handle it. As a critic, I can handle it, right? It's a very slow biopic, and it's very deep and heavy into this, following this freedom fighter / almost terrorist who's pushing back against the horrors that the British have done in this massive slaughter, these actual historical moments, historical person. So it is very much rooted and actually fact check true a lot more than a lot of other projects and a lot of other films that we prop up for, Oscar consideration and things like that. I'm trying to get my mouse is not cooperating, of course. Always has to be something, ZAXX. Always has to be something. Here's my link to it. Because at the end scene where you have sort of this, I likened it to Hacksaw Ridge and the opening of Saving Private Ryan. Horrific. Like, you're in the middle of a scene that you don't feel like you can forget, and you shouldn't forget. It should change you because this actually happened. And I know in the last few days with the Queen dying. We hear about the British and the colonialism and people racing to support Britain and history and her and all that. And I kept thinking in the back of my mind back to this movie going, yeah, but you need to be able to see other sides of that coin. You know what I mean? I know she's not personally responsible for doing these things or whatever, but Churchill was. He's responsible for some of the stuff that happened. And I didn't know that.
And the famine that happened.
Yeah.
That was Churchill as well.
Yeah. So there is a richness to their filmmaking that they take very seriously. That movie is very, very well made. And that actor is freaking phenomenal. And the film and his acting should have been Oscar worthy. And the fact that they wouldn't submit it because of this, fake British sentiment, I think it's just silly. It definitely was worthy. And I think I even looked at the Oscar films that won that year and they were a joke. It easily would have been one that at least should have been able to have been seen. Did you see?
Also an excellent actor. I think I've seen him in some other stuff as well. He's really good. I think one of the things that makes it work so well is it's done on location. There's no volume work, and there's a scene when he's in Russia, and he's alone, and as alone as a person can ever get, and you kind of feel that almost hopelessness of being out there, and you don't get that feeling from anything shot, using green screen or the volume.
No, they film with a lot of locations, a lot of extras, a lot of I guess they have to have stunt people, but I'm telling you, these people that are doing a lot of this stuff is very, very real. You're not seeing the CGI stuff, which, again, the animals in RRR, but you have these massive scenery scenes and castles and whatever. And I think RRR and the Bahubali films worked so much easier for me with all of the superhero type behavior and all that kind of stuff because of the way it's set in sort of a mythical place, mythical time. It's, you have sort of rooted in when it kind of happens. But when we've had other films, like, I don't know if did you get through KGF 1 and 2?
Just one. I haven't watched 2 yet.
Yeah. So for me, again, it was the Bahubali problem all over again. I enjoyed 1, but it wasn't great. Like, this is all the hoopla. But then when I saw the second one and we finished the epic, we get further. And by the way, it doesn't finish. I didn't even put that in my review because evidently there's a credit scene and they can kind of go on. And I'm like, oh, did not know that. It's rooted in like more real life. It's rooted in the streets. It's rooted into like the gritty world of like, cocaine or drug smuggling and moving product and things like that. The supernatural elements were a little harder to handle. I don't know with Americans how, because we're such hypocrites as an audience. Like, we're okay with Iron Man and Captain America, but these two guys throwing a tiger or throwing a motorcycle around, that's ridiculous. I'm like, come on, please. Are we really going to have that? Is that kind of been something you can kind of see, or how do you feel about how we move Americans around working through some of that?
Yeah, I think that there's going to be movies that just don't translate very well, and I think KGF could, and a lot of people have warned me, don't watch it, or if you watch it, it's not really for foreigners. But I did enjoy it. But it took me. I watched the beginning a couple of times because it took me a while to sort of let go of what I was expecting it to be and just enjoy it for what it was.
Which one?
KGF.
Okay.
Yeah, to really just like let yourself, get into that world, because it's a big leap, and especially because it's contemporary, or relatively speaking, right? I don't know when it is, but it's
in the 70s, in the early, so it's like 79, I think is when it starts, in the 70s for sure.
Yeah. So for me, that's it's a bit of a tougher leap, but once you do get into it and you just enjoy it as the story and some of the scenes and the character, obviously Yash, you do get pulled into it, but I could see why people would turn it on and then go, I don't get this, and then kind of give up on it. But I didn't do that. I don't think people should do that, but I could see that reaction.
Yeah, and I will say, and I know, again, I'm sorry, we're going to dance around race sensitivity and things like that. The beginning of KGF, it was really hard to follow the structure of the crime syndicate, who's aligned with who and who's in which group. I think I made a joke about like the Crips and the Bloods are not wearing enough different colors here for me to keep track. And then of course everyone's betraying each other and there's corruption and whatever. And you're like, yeah, I got who Yash is. I got who, you know, the main guy Rocky is, but I don't necessarily have who some of these other characters are.
Right.
I will say I was actually lucky to be watching that one, I think through Amazon Prime, which has like who the actors are on you can click the little button so the actors' names and stuff will pop up on the left, so I can kind of keep track better of the who's who, because at times that is not translating well for us. So I would say, and Aditya agrees. He says, I understand if Americans do not like KGF. I would recommend it though, especially the second one. The second one ramps it up because there are some silliness that happens in KGF. There's a scene where Rocky's meeting the girl and it gets a little silly because he punches the guy up and then grabs his hand to fix his hair. And it's a little over the top and a little bit because you're in the moment, but then you're not in the moment. You're in the moment, you're not in the moment. I think that's the problem for Americans. They'll have a hard time with that. Am I taking this seriously or am I not taking it seriously? I think that's the problem. And then because it's set, like you said, set in like, you know, the 70s or in the early 80s, or I think it's mostly the 70s. I also thought they overuse sometimes this. Hollywood does this terrible, by the way, though. I actually was just critical of another movie who did this, but they spend too much time spoon feeding into some details. Like they had to have the narration part with KGF. Like we're uncovering this story to tell to you. I don't think we really needed any of that. We could have just jumped into the story and probably shaved, 15 or 20 minutes and tightened up some of that kind of stuff, things like that. But to each their own. I didn't think it's terrible or anything. So it's just, I like them. They're good. It was fun. I enjoyed it. I thought it was funny, ZAXX, that people were telling us, well, you'll only like RRR and Bahubali or KGF. You won't like both. And I was like, well, something's wrong with me because I liked both. I'm good with all of it. I didn't have a problem with either side.
And people are recommending Kathy. I think I hope I'm saying that right.
I called it Kaithi. I don't know if that was how I was supposed to pronounce it. I did my review on that one. I did like it. It's different. Again, it's set in a time, an actual literal drug cartel, like a literal drug cartel moving like a cocaine type product. Again, for us, it's hard to sometimes understand the structure, like who's in which gang and who's aligned with who and which are the cops that are going with which. And they ping around to 3 or 4 different subplots very smoothly for them. I'm assuming. Right. It was a little harder, but once you're really into the meat of the chase and how things are happening, you really get to see this character come to life and him and his motivation, to reconnect with this daughter. It's way more grounded than even the other films, and I enjoyed it more. And I'm actually now on the sequel, which is Vikram, right? Which is in the 2022 Vikram guys, whatever the new one is, not the 86 one, because I know they're all connected. And this was so cool to find out. Like the director of that, Lokesh, is creating his own LCU, his own Lokesh cinematic universe by connecting these things. And I found that out, and I actually was more excited because that's pretty cool, isn't it? We love that kind of stuff.
Absolutely, yeah.